I swear, with this book, it's like I fix one problem and then a new one pops up. I was going back and forth between how I wanted something to be laid out. How do I give examples without giving too much away? How do I do this? How do I say this? Actually, can I lower you a little bit? Now you're a wee bit low, friends. How do I want to talk about this? I have my big bad happening, like the big conflict coming on a Thursday. Initially, it was this Thursday. And I initially didn't love it happening on that day because if you remember, let's go way, way back really quick to how in Dreaming About the Boy Next Door, Ava goes to a cafe. Reed walks in, and there's a line that says, with Landon and his girlfriend. When I initially wrote this draft of book 4, Fake Dating the Football Player, my character was not in town on that Friday, which is Homecoming Friday. So, and I talked about how I would think I had to go back and change it. Should I go back and change it? I don't know. I was working in this draft, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't love the fact that she was going to be missing Homecoming. Because Fake Dating the Football Player, it's the football homecoming game, you know, like it felt like pretty important. So I didn't love the fact that she was going to be missing it. And so I was playing around with this idea that maybe she could be there for Football Friday. But then I freaking forgot, and I reorganized a little bit of my plot before I remember this. I freaking forgot at the end of About with the Bad Boy, Lacey goes to Landon's house and meets Landon's parents on a Thursday. And that Thursday is what tees up, you know, climax and then her being out of town for Football Friday. So, I'm upset about that. So I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do. I thought I had a pretty good fix, and then I remembered, oh no, that can't work because she needs to meet his parents on that Thursday. And that Thursday is what tees up the spiral. You guys had so many great suggestions about keeping timelines clear. My brain doesn't work like that, unfortunately. Like writing things out, and planning things out with a series Bible and all these fantastic methods. They sound really great methods, but for some reason I have to work through it, come to a problem, and then backtrack and work through it again. Planning things out in advance, it leaves me very overwhelmed, like that way anyway, and I don't see everything until I run into a problem. And I do have my plot points written down, like timelines written down, but do I reference them? What's the word I'm looking for? Do I reference them as much as I should? No, obviously not, because we keep running into issues. The book just evolves at such a weird like pace that I don't know, I guess I don't enjoy running into issues. I don't love it, but I guess I just work better that way. I feel like I brainstorm a little bit better. I don't know if it was in this vlog, a different vlog. I don't know how I'm structuring my vlog clips just yet. But this book has left me struggling. I'm working on it, but I'm not working on it as much as I should. I'm not having as much fun as like I had fun drafting it. I don't know how clear I want to be with this. I didn't really feel excited to go into these edits as much as I do in the past, and I feel like I have talked about how I was excited to make it. The thing is, I was excited to get to like the final product, but I didn't really feel very encouraged at the thought of going into these edits. I felt like I had a lot of work to do, and I honestly didn't feel very encouraged. Normally I do feel encouraged to, like, you know, get to the next draft, work on the next draft, and work on things. I don't know how to say it without. I don't know how to say it. But this editing process has been a lot tougher for me this time around The glare in my glasses is driving me crazy. It's going back to the shed days where I would sit in front of the window and the glare in my glasses. It's not as bad, but I also don't love how I look in glasses. I took a nap though, so I had to take my contacts out. Sometimes you get edits back from your editor. Who's speaking? You're very loud. And, you know, you read their feedback and you're just so excited to get into the next draft. And sometimes you read their feedback and it's like, oh, this is gonna be a lot of work. Doesn't sound as fun. Yeah, I've been struggling a little bit. I actually had this thought 2 nights ago that, like, if this pre-order wasn't up, like, would I cut this book? I don't know. I love the idea of the story so much. I just felt so not encouraged. I was working through the edits and I just felt like, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I kind of think about it like any other full-time job. You know, like you have things that you don't want to do. You have projects you don't want to work on. You have like hours you don't want to do. And it's important, like you really don't have a choice. You just gotta keep doing it. So I'm looking at it that way. And I'm slowly but surely getting through this draft and, you know, feeling a little bit more sure in the story. I think it's really important to look for the good and the bad when you're assessing your draft and try not to let all of the negatives overwhelm you. I think that's really important, but it's really easy to, you know, let happen when you're looking at everything that needs to be changed, and the amount of things you see need to be changed don't kind of balance with the amount of positives, you know, so it just can be really disheartening. And I think it got to me a little bit in terms of like, I don't even want to look at this draft because all I see are things that are wrong and not things that are right. But of course there are things that are right. It was a first draft that I sent to my editor. So of course there's going to be more negatives than positives, but of course there are going to be positives, you know, of course. I personally love the love story in this book. You know, I love how my characters find each other and like rely on each other and grow with each other. Yes, it needs more depth. Like that's the thing, like every pro has a con attached to it. So it just makes it not as fun also. I've just been struggling a little bit, but we're not gonna give up. Obviously, this is our job. We gotta do our job. I'm also coming off of the weekend off. I took the weekend of my birthday off because I was hanging out with family all weekend. And I think every time I take multiple days off in a row, it's a lot harder to come back. So that's probably also attributing to my I don't wanna, you know. This is me. That was the update. Like I said, I mentioned it in a clip, like, oh, I have an author update to talk to you guys about, but I don't remember if there's a clip that's going to be in this vlog or in a lifestyle vlog. I don't know. So I think I'm going to take a break for some dinner. It's 6:37. I don't know what I'm going to have. I have soup I should eat. I cut up too much spinach earlier for my eggs, so I might put the leftover spinach in the soup. That sounds tasty. Actually, it doesn't, but it sounds healthier, so like, you know, yay. Oh, I meant to film this clip earlier when it wasn't 11:30 at night, when I looked cuter, when the lighting was better, but I didn't do that. So, here we go. Last clip you saw, that ended on a bummer, didn't it? It did. It was a very bummer of a clip. And I almost posted it as the video, and then I realized that's not, it felt weird to leave a vlog on a clip that's like a negative, you know, mindset, and then you would all be encouraging when I'm no longer in that mindset. You know, I felt like it just didn't feel right to me. Let's unpack what I just said in that last clip. So I was struggling with my manuscript, and struggling is common. Struggling is okay. So it's not a bad thing to struggle, and it's not a bad thing when you're doubting. You know, it's normal. I was just feeling very overwhelmed with the amount of things that needed to be fixed and changed and altered, and I wasn't feeling encouraged when I was looking at my draft. And I mentioned it in the previous clip, but I don't think it really hit me until later that night. I'm working on a first draft.
So I'm editing a first draft. So I wrote my first draft. I sent it to my developmental editor early because I felt confident in it at the time. And for a first draft, I would say it was a pretty clean first draft. And so when my editor sent it back to me, of course there were going to be more edits than normal because it was a first draft. But I was not prepared for all of the edits that would be needed, not mentally prepared. And so when I saw them all laid out and I was brainstorming them all, it was a lot to brainstorm and it was very overwhelming for me. So I think that's where my mindset was wrong because I was thinking, why is there so many things to edit? This book just must be garbage. It just must be a bad book. And it's not a bad book, it's just an early draft of the book. So I think once I sort of like realized that, it was a lot easier to be objective about it in a way and looking at it like this is just another stepping stone in the process. I'm just on a different stone than I normally am by the time developmental edits come back. Because for reference, I finish the first draft and then I go back through and I edit the major things. At the time, I couldn't see the major things that needed to be edited, and I felt pretty confident in that first draft. But I say confident, but I mean confident enough that I needed another set of eyes to help me see what was next. So I skipped the second draft. So it makes more sense looking at it that way that this edit is going to be bigger because this is the second draft edit, technically. And normally I do the self edits first. I didn't do that this time. Will I do this again in the future and send a first draft to my editor? Probably not. I think it was helpful and I think I'm on the right track. It was a lot that needed to be changed all at once. And it left me feeling more discouraged than encouraged. And that's not anything against my editor because this book needs it and I would prefer to have all the honest feedback possible. But I also think in the future, it does make more sense for me to even attempt to edit beforehand. And I think what would have helped and what I don't normally do is once I finish that first draft, if I had let that book sit, that probably would have been very helpful. So I don't normally let my books sit in between drafts. A lot of authors are different and there's no right or wrong way how to edit, how to draft. It's all personal preference. I never used to let drafts sit in between drafts. I would finish a first draft and I would jump immediately into the next draft. So I think what would have helped in that scenario, instead of finishing the first draft and then sending it to my developmental editor, I think finishing that first draft, letting it sit for a week or something, and then coming back to it with fresh eyes. And then if I couldn't find anything that I wanted to edit, then send it to the developmental editor. Like I said, not that I'm regretting doing that. I just think for me personally, it's a lot all at once to see all the things that need fixed. I think if I had done another pass and caught the big things that I wanted to change and tweak, it probably would have made for an easier editing this round, and I would have been less burnt out for this round of editing. But like I said, it was a bunch of things that needed fixed all at once, and so it just kind of stalled me out a little bit. And that's okay. I learned something new. I'm 10 books in, I'm still learning new things about my process, which is really interesting. Honestly, it's interesting that every single book is different. But I was really confident in that first draft for it being a first draft. And I still actually am pretty happy with what the first draft looks like. But I think as I was editing this draft 2, I was thinking, oh my gosh, why is this book so rough? But it's because it's a first draft, so that's why, I am in a much better headspace about it. So where I'm at currently, I probably 10% left to write and edit. And then what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go find all of my little brackets that I interjected throughout the manuscript and write the scenes that are oh, write this later, or something like that. So I'm going to write those scenes. I'm going to read through it again for more depth, more clarity, dialogue tag fixings, more line edit things in that next read through. and then we're gonna play it by ear and go from there. Right now, I technically have until September to publish this book. That's when the pre-order is set. I was hoping for July. It could still be July. I don't know. I feel a lot calmer about where I'm at in the editing process now than I did when I filmed that previous clip. And I think it's okay to doubt yourself. You know, it's okay to be discouraged as long as you don't stay there. And that's kind of the reason why I didn't feel comfortable posting that video as it was, because I didn't want anyone to think I was staying there, and I don't want anyone else to feel weighed down by my video, you know, because I feel like after I edited it, I felt weighed down, and that's not a fun place to leave somebody when they're watching your video and you just complain about your book and then the video ends. Like, no thank you. I just wanted to kind of expand a little bit more on that thought process since I'm no longer in that discouraged place. And something else that I realized since that clip is that I was trying to edit everything all at once, which is not going to work. So, like I said, there were a lot of things that I felt needed to be changed, a lot of things that needed to be fixed, and I was trying to tackle all of those edits at one time. But I can't do that because that's a lot to be like keeping in your brain. Your brain is full of things wrong with your manuscript, so that's all you're focusing on. But what I'm doing now, and this is something that I've decided since that previous clip, is that I'm going to be kind of like focusing, like this right now read through is the big picture things that I'm changing. So scenes that need to be tweaked and added, like scenes that the motivation needs to be changed and stuff, like big things like that for this read through. The next read through is going to be smaller consistency things, and then the next read through after that is going to be, you know, the other smaller stuff. I can't edit everything at the same time, so I can't do big picture things along with little picture things and motivation because it's just too hard for me. It moves too slowly that way. I move too slowly that way. That's how I got overwhelmed, was that I was going through this edit trying to do my line edits at the same time as my big picture edits, at the same time as my character motivation edits. And when you're looking at everything in the book that is wrong, quote unquote wrong, instead of saying, hey, okay, this read through is just character motivation. This read through, we're editing just making sure the scenes are the way I want them to. I lost my train of thought. Where'd it go? When I focus on everything, that's how I got overwhelmed, and that's where I was in that previous clip. I was thinking about everything that was wrong and not looking at it in stages of editing the drafts. So I hope I'm being clear. I hope I am, you know, making sense. Like I said, it's 11:30 at night. I did not have a nap today. I feel very tired, so maybe I'm not making sense. I do still feel like my development edit was hugely helpful. I just think, like I said, next time, personally, I probably would do it after I've edited, and that's on me, but it's not, but everything that my editor gave me was immensely helpful and useful, so like, that's not a negative, it's just me saying next time, I don't think we're going to send out a first draft. And I've never sent a first draft out to anybody before, so this was just the test to see if it worked. And maybe if I went into edits with a little bit of a different mindset from the get-go, things wouldn't be as stressful, but that's where I'm at. That's what I'm thinking. I am, like I said, I have probably about 10-15% left to do for this big picture edit, and then I'm going to go back through for character motivation and smaller like dialogue tweaking and stuff. So I feel pretty good about this draft. But if you're feeling discouraged with your editing, with your work in progress, you've got this. You've really got this. Sometimes things are going to be tough, but I'm over here in your corner. I'm rooting for you. I'm cheering for you. If you can take it smaller bites at a time, like smaller pieces. Like for me, I was trying to eat my entire work in progress edits cake whole, but I need to have it piece by piece. And that is something huge. So I think once I realized, it sort of changed how I look at this work in progress. Because honestly, if I'm going to be fully honest, I did not want to open my Word doc. I did not want to edit at all. I didn't even want to look at this book. And like I mentioned, I think I mentioned it in the last clip, I was thinking, you know what? If this book wasn't even on pre-order, I probably wouldn't write it. Which means I was way too overwhelmed and way too close to burnout. So it's because I was trying to take in the entire edits all at once. I was trying to eat that entire cake whole. But we're not doing that anymore. We are working it piece by piece. I worked a lot today. I probably got a chapter edited, which feels really good, especially because it was a pretty emotionally charged chapter and it took a lot of focus. So I feel pretty good. I feel like I'm getting back on track with my editing and my writing. And it feels good because, like I said, I haven't been really productive with it in a while. I got back into it Friday night with my writing sprints, so it feels really good to be back into it, get back into a flow. So yeah, that's it. That's my thought process, I think. We're chugging along. We are working through these edits, and I think that now that I have a better game plan with how I'm going to tackle them, it's going to be a lot more manageable and a lot more exciting. So yeah, that's me. I hope we left off on a more encouraging note this time. I hope you guys are loving your work in progress life right now. It's Camp Nano, so let me know down below how your camp goals are going. If you're on track, if you're behind, if you've won already, let me know. I think this edit was probably the hardest because there was a lot of timeline issues I was trying to figure out, and I kept running into problem after problem after problem. But now that I'm almost done, I think the timeline is pretty much set in stone, and I feel like that's going to make the entire editing process from here on out a whole lot easier and a whole lot less stressful because we do have the timeline solidified. So I think that was probably another major thing that was at play with my stress, is just the fact that the timeline, I just couldn't get it right. But since those vlogs, I have gotten it pretty much solidified. So I think that's going to be a big overall help as well. That's me. That's my paused K-drama in the background, but I am not watching episode 10 tonight. I'm too tired. I will see you guys on Friday with another video. Let me know in the comments about your Camp Nano. And I love you, and have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, or night. Bye, guys!